Should be good now.
Welcome to the AF North Talk. I am your boy Ace Boogie. I represent the Bengals. We got my man Sonny, SZG Sports, that represents the Ravens. My man Tony rocking the Artie Burns one tonight, representing the Steelers. And then we got my man Quincy Carrier representing the Browns. So tonight we're talking about the secondary. So we're going to talk about the corners and we're going to talk about the safeties. And I think that this is going to be an exciting show to kick things off. So thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Also, if you know anyone who loves the AFC North, enjoys what we do here, I think you guys do, please sure to tell them to, subscribe to the channel. Come and find us, AFC North Talk on YouTube. But let's kick these things off. Let's start with the corner position. And I really want to hear you guys' takes on this. So let's go with Quincy. Who is the worst cornerback room in the division, in your opinion?
Yeah, I got to give it to Cincinnati, especially since the Trey Waynes injury seems like it's going to be season-ending to very serious length. It wasn't a great secondary last year. I mean, like, they have William Jackson, who is a bit underrated, but still outside of that, I mean, like, what last year you guys were starting guys like B.W. Webb, and it looks like he might have to go back to the B.W. Webb bag, which is never a good situation to be in.
Right.
And then, it's just, it needs improvement in the secondary. I thought you guys had a lot of improvement coming in, but it just doesn't seem like things are shaking your way in the health department.
Yep, makes sense. Let's go to Sonny.
Yeah, so for me, it was. I think if Wayne was there, I think that would improve significantly, right? Especially if Jackson was also starting and he was healthy. I think that's a pretty good duo. But no Wayne, Jackson, we'll see. As we were talking before the show, can he go back? Players in contract years tend to overperform. So I think he will perform this year. But still, after Jackson...
players in contract years tend
Whoa.
My bad.
Okay. So the big thing is, after Jackson, who's that second guy? It's nothing really good out there. So I think I have to give it to the Bengals too.
Okay. And Tony.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is actually a fun year to do cornerback as a Steeler fan, because any other year this has been the week I'd take the week off, because Steelers corners in the past have been atrocious. That is not the case going into 2020. I mean, look, I wouldn't have put the Bengals 4 before the Trey Waynes injury, but you have to now, because like everybody said, I just don't even know who's going to start there. I mean, there's been talk maybe Drake Kirkpatrick comes back, to put a body out there. I thought Trey Waynes was a good signing for them. Look, William Jackson's been a solid corner for them. I know he hasn't lived up to the hype of his rookie year, but boy, there's an alternate reality. Like, I'm wearing an Artie Burns jersey tonight, okay? Because that's the only Steelers secondary player jersey that I have. There's an alternate reality where this is a William Jackson jersey, okay? Because the Steelers wanted William Jackson that year, and the Bengals went up and got him before the Steelers could take him. The Steelers end up with Artie Burns. In fact, if you believe in alternate realities, there's an alternate reality where that's the only difference. And I would like to go to that universe, see what it's like, because Artie Burns, not a fun experiment in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to put the Bengals 4, but this would have been my third group, because I like Mackenzie Alexander as well as a nickel corner, as a slot corner. I actually like him a lot. So, Trey Waynes, William Jackson, Mackenzie Alexander, that's a good group. It's really unfortunate that Trey Waynes went down with that injury.
I would just like to note that Tony ranked the Bengals number 4, spent the whole segment talking about the Steelers. Found a way.
Get ready. Last week it was pressure. Goodness. Today I'm just talking all Steelers. I'm going to wrap it around the Steelers every time.
So for me on this one, it actually was pretty close. So I think for those outside of Cincinnati, they are not familiar with Darius Phillips. And if you've been following the whole Trey Waynes thing, honestly, when we signed Trey Waynes, most Bengals fans didn't really want Trey Waynes, because they felt like Trey Waynes, from what they heard from Vikings fans and stuff like that, they felt like it was an overpay. They felt like we should have used that money somewhere else, especially being that Darius Phillips had the season that he had last season. Now, with Darius Phillips, the thing is, it was a very small sample size, but it was a very good sample size at the same time, because he was one of the top graded corners in PFF. You talk about 81.5, but just taking the PFF up out of it, he also had 4 interceptions. Like, it was kind of insane how many interceptions that he had. in that span of time. So a lot of Bengals fans, when Trey Waynes went down, you might have noticed on Twitter the first thing that they said was Darius Phillips is coming in. We're good with that. Like, we're not bringing Dre Kirkpatrick back. That's not happening. And, Dre was kind of an overrated player. A lot of people wanted Darius Phillips to get some snaps before then. So what happened was, as Sonny said, a lot of our corners got hurt last year. William Jackson III at one point, Dre Kirkpatrick. At one point, like Quincy said, we were throwing BW Webb out there. But in between that, we actually threw Darius Phillips out there, and he did a remarkable job. This was a guy that was a 5th-round pick. We never really thought that we were going to see that from him. We saw his ability to return kicks and stuff, and we thought that was it. We thought that this was just a cornerback guy that was great at returning kicks, might have some potential. And he just came in and really blossomed. And he was far better than BW Webb. He was far better than Dre Kirkpatrick. It wasn't even close. He gets hurt. He comes back. And we're expecting to see the same thing because it was like we got a sneak preview. And he comes back and he's doing the same thing out there on the boundaries. So for us, it was kind of a head scratcher when they went and signed Trey Waynes. Not because Trey Waynes, isn't more established, doesn't have more of a career. But the fact that you're paying possibly a second corner, 5th-round money, and he showed you something last season, you would expect to get that guy another chance. And then Trey Wayne's injury happened, which, is unfortunate. But to be honest, when I did my research on Trey Waynes, he's really just Dre Kirkpatrick, except that he can actually tackle. Like, Dre Kirkpatrick was just horrible at tackling, but he's going to give up those plays. And so Trey Waynes, from my research with talking to Vikings fans and stuff like that, it seemed like he was kind of that guy too. Now, he is a bit faster, and it is unfortunate that, he got hurt, but that was a huge blow to, I guess, the Cincinnati locker room. But to Bengals fans, it wasn't as big of a blow, if that makes sense. And then you talk about Mackenzie Alexander, one of the top slot corners in the league last year. We expect him to slide in and be exactly an upgrade over what Darqueze Dennard essentially was. So a very talented guy that's going to hold down the middle or the inside, but he can't really do much outside of that. You can't ask him to be on the outside. So there's that. And then you talk about William Jackson III. William Jackson III definitely is an underrated cornerback. However, in recent history, and I'm comparing this based on the William Jackson III I saw in 2017 that shut AB down twice, he has not been that guy. Guys have scored on him. He's been targeted. He started following guys and stuff last year, but he was very inconsistent in that role. He still was our best corner, far and above our best corner. However, we still have to see him play consistent, and with him being in a contract year, we're going to expect that to essentially happen. But when you get past that, you just get into a bunch of questionable guys. You talk about Winston Rose. This guy didn't even play in the NFL last year. You talk about some of the other guys that they have there. One injury in this room could be even more devastating, to the point where you're having bums out there like we kind of did last year. So I totally understand why this group is number 4. And maybe if Trey Waynes returns this season, I'm not looking for it to happen. I always look at these situations pessimistically. Maybe this group can get better, but they're still not that group that would end up being anywhere near the top of the AFC North. So that's how I'm going to end it. So moving on.
Hey, let me do a parenthesis here. You see, Tony, how you do it? You talk about the team that you're ranking. That's the team that you talk about.
Oh,
that's how you do it.
Well, we're gonna try something new tonight. We're gonna try something different.
So now let's go to number 3. We're going to swing it back to Tony and see if he can not talk about the Steelers this time.
Oh, I got some bad news. Number 3 for me is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is a top-heavy unit. Obviously, Denzel Ward, maybe they're just the most talented cornerback in the division, just from a single guy. Denzel Ward is fantastic. And then they got Greedy Williams last year, who I really like, and we'll talk about him in a second. We're going to swing him back around to the Steelers. And then they filled the room out. I mean, look, they're still going to have Terrence Mitchell. Kevin Johnson, a cast-off from Houston, a former first-round pick, comes in. MJ Stewart is an interesting piece from North Carolina. But it's really a top-heavy unit, right? You're talking about Denzel Ward, who's proven himself as a top-flight corner in the NFL. And then they got Greedy Williams, who's a guy who, anyone who listened to me on Locked On Steelers last year knows I was very high on Greedy as potentially coming in and being a shutdown corner for the Steelers, right? If you're looking at Joe Hayden and he's not going to be here in a couple of years. And I know they brought in Steven Nelson last year and he ended up being fantastic, but at the time we didn't know that was going to happen. So I wanted Greedy in Pittsburgh a lot. So I love the unit that they have, Ward and Williams. Now, watching some tape from Greedy last year, the big knock on him is that he doesn't tackle. I mean, the guy doesn't even want to tackle. The effort plays. And that showed a little bit. He's got to work on that. But when you're talking about an NFL that's where teams are throwing 600 and 700 times, tackling is secondary. What is number one is, can you defend one-on-one against those top flight guys? And when you have Denzel Ward, who you can put up against any top flight wide receiver, and then Greedy Williams is your number two, go back and watch what Greedy Williams did to DK Metcalf, right? Everybody talks about the freak athlete that DK Metcalf is. Go watch Greedy Williams tape at LSU and how he shut him down in college. It's phenomenal tape. And I look for Greedy Williams to grow on this roster over time. The depth here is a little questionable for me. Terrence Mitchell, not great. Like I said, Kevin Johnson's a first-round cast-off, so it's not a deep unit, but I like the top end there. I like Denzel Ward, and, of course, I love me some Greedy Williams. So the Browns are going to be my number 3.
Okay, so we're going to switch it up, and I'm going to follow up that. I think for me, number 3, it pains me to do this, but in a league where you really have to have all 3 corners play snaps, I have to go by my ranking judged by that, especially with people spreading guys out. So for me, unfortunately, Quincy, it's going to be the Browns, my guy. For me, I think that Tony hit on several points. I'm not as high on Greedy Williams as he was. I was before the draft. I saw that he, from what I heard from Quincy, he was kind of an overrated guy or in the consideration for being overrated. I have heard a lot about Terrence Mitchell. So I think Terrence Mitchell, if I'm going by PFF and what I've heard, I think he has slightly outplayed him a little bit, but, he is a nickel corner. So for me, for that point, I think that Denzel Ward, just like Tony said, I think he has an argument to be possibly the top corner in this division. I think it's between him, Peters, as well as Marlon Humphrey. I don't see it. I see it being a debate when we talk about that. I think that he's been that guy. He can shut guys down. He's proven. I'm still thinking about the play where he grabbed a pick off of a guy's butt. I don't remember what that was, but it was insane. But he's a great corner. But we have to count the other guys that are out on the field with him. Hopefully Greedy Williams can take that step this season. I have no fear that or no doubt that he will. I think that he was probably just kind of thrust into that position last season, and I think he learned a lot from that season, and he played average. It's not like he played bad, so it wasn't like he got killed or anything last year. But if he can take it to the next level, the Browns will have a very talented tandem over there, and I think that we'd obviously be ranking these guys a lot higher than we are. But that is my pick, is the Browns at number 3. Quincy, what's your pick for number 3?
Me and Tony, we've actually agreed on the last 10 rankings on this list.
It ends now.
Phenomenal streak. And it's going to end now because I do have Pittsburgh here. I think Pittsburgh's the number 3 secondary in the AFC. Not saying it's a bad secondary, but I don't think it's going to be the same level of secondary that it might have been last year, where it was clearly the number 2 secondary in the AFC North. Now, I have a couple reasons on why I think this. One, Joe Hayden's getting up there in age, and I worry about Joe Hayden. He's a very athletic corner. He's a guy who kind of lives on his athletic ability. He's kind of outlived what you would have thought his expiration date would have been, because it seemed like he was going to be done once he got cut by Cleveland, but he's had three great years in Pittsburgh so far.
Yeah.
And now he's getting to 31 years old, and I just worry about how much longer can Joe Hayden continue to play at this level where, he's not Joe Hayden of old by any means, but he's really good. Now, he might just be one of those guys, because there's some DBs that can just play to their 40. He might be one of those guys. He takes care of his body. He's kind of anti-Big Ben in that sense. But, he
All right.
take that swing there. And then, Steven Nelson I like Steven Nelson a lot. I'm not high on Mike Hilton. I think Minka. Oh boy, I like Minka. I think Minka is a B+ safety.
First of all, we're on corners, not safeties. You can save this for the safety. But you're already wrong. I'll preempt everything you were going to say with that is a very wrong take. You have about a half hour to talk about safety. So let's readjust. And we'll get back there.
Okay, we're talking about corners. Oh, this is easy. Number 3 then for Pittsburgh. Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden's getting up there in age. Steven Nelson's a solid corner. Good, but
you're gonna badmouth Mike Hilton, which is again, I don't like it.
I'm not badmouthing Mike Hilton. I'm just saying he's not great, but he's solid. He's solid. He's all right. He's 8-8. He's 8-8.
Oh, okay, all right.
Got an 8-8 secondary.
Perfect. Love it.
That's fair.
All right.
Okay,
So then
so
that
for
goes.
me,
Yep. Go ahead, Sonny.
So for me, this one number 3 was hard, and I'm gonna give you basically my 3 and 2 because I need to justify why this is 3. I think between Pittsburgh and the Browns, you have a team, in my opinion, that has better corners that haven't reached their ceiling. You got Denzel Ward that had a really good first year and a little bit of a down year in second year. Greedy Williams, I knock him, but I give rookies a pass, especially not first round picks. A corner as a rookie is super hard. So I think he performed as kind of expected. And then the other side, you have in Pittsburgh some corners that, in my opinion, overperform a little bit, and this year might go down a little bit. I think it helped that having a good D-line and a good pass rusher. That helps those corners in Pittsburgh. And versus Cleveland, other than Myles Garrett, we talked about this last week, other than them, who's generating pass rush, well, that affects those corners. So I went back and forth, and I had to say, at the end of the day, I give the edge for number 2 to Pittsburgh, and I had to put Cleveland in 3 because Denzel Ward taking a smaller step back. I'm thinking that he will regain it this year. I will have to disagree that he's top corner in this division because of that, because he took a step back. I think maybe with time, but in the second year, I don't think he is there. And the Pittsburgh Steelers corner, Hayden, I don't know how he's still doing it, but he was still fairly consistent. And, the number 2 corner for the Pittsburgh. And I just think the pass rush is helping them. But at the end of the day, that's how they perform. So I had to basically put Browns at 3, Steelers at 2.
Okay. Well, Sonny gave us his second pick for his justification there. Let's swing it back to Quincy. Quincy, what are your thoughts there?
2, Cleveland Browns here. All right. So let me explain this thoroughly why I think the Browns are number 2. One, to understand the step back for Denzel Ward and kind of the, I would say, underwhelmingness of Greedy. Like, Greedy was still playing at a starting level all last year. He just wasn't who we thought he was going to be coming out of LSU. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that, and I hate to bring him up all the time, but Freddie Kitchens was the head coach. And then I forget who the coordinator was. He was the guy who got fired from Arizona in 1 year. So, not a guy who has a great track record. But they were running a defense that was not playing to the strengths of Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams.
Especially on a zone last year, right?
Yeah. Denzel and Greedy, that's not them. That's not them. You want the man on man. They're athletic corners. Greedy's like 6'2". Like, you definitely just want man on man. And then look, as much as everybody talked about Greedy Williams not being able to tackle, I'll tell you one thing, not a problem at all last year with Greedy Williams. He actually has a higher grade when it comes to run defense in PFF than he does pass defense. So
is that true?
Yeah. He's like in the 60s there. So like he was an adequate tackler to like pretty decent last year. So if that's all together and they get him in the defense and it looks like they are going to have him play a lot more man this year, I feel really confident about Greedy Williams' ability to step up and play some real high-level football this year. And the same thing with Denzel Ward, because Denzel Ward is not Denzel Ward as he was last year. Is not as a Pro Bowler he was last year. He only, I think the quarterback passer rating against him was 50, which is pretty phenomenal on a bad year for a corner. And then you look at what's behind him. And Terrence Mitchell, not a lot of people would know about Terrence Mitchell or seen the 2 years that he's put in Cleveland, but Terrence Mitchell could start, I would think, on at least 28 secondaries in the NFL. He's a pretty good corner, in my opinion. Like from what I've seen of him, he was the guy who kind of stepped in last year when Greedy kind of got hurt, and there was like some weird things going on with him and Denzel Ward. He stepped in. Even I think against the Ravens, where the Browns were down to like all of their backups that game in the secondary. He was a huge part of helping out in that game. So Terrence Mitchell was a really good piece to have there. Kevin Johnson, guy who had a really good year in Buffalo. He's a first-round cast-off and did not play well when he was in Houston, but he had a really good year when they put him in the slot in Buffalo. That's what they're going to do here in Cleveland. And it's limited. There's only been 1 day of pads, but through 3 practices that I've watched on this live stream, he's looked really good. He's gotten like 3 interceptions so far. He's been playing some really good football. It looks like he has found his niche in the NFL.
Tony, don't say it.
Three interceptions might speak more about something else on that team, but continue.
Like, they're all Case Keenum. It's not like he's like
Okay, good.
Flat guy. They're not going to run specialty defensive sets out there. But I'm dead serious. It was all Case Keenum. But Baker's actually looked pretty decent. We're not even talking about Baker yet. But, it's he's looked pretty good out there. You just look at technique standpoint, been able to stay with guys. I really like what I've seen with Kevin Johnson, and that's like maybe he's in the competition with Terrence Mitchell for third, fourth corner here. I really like what they have going there. And then you have the versatility. Like Delpit could start at safety, but they could start Sadejo and then have Grant Delpit be the slot corner. So, this is just a ton of versatility and then a pretty good amount of size there in that secondary that I like a lot, and athletic ability, which is going to be important because you're going to need those corners to tackle Lamar Jackson once Baltimore comes to town.
No, I think, Quincy, what you said was very key there. You talked about how some teams move that safety, like you said with Delpit, to that corner position. Like I know Von Bell, who we just signed as well, did some of that as well with the New Orleans Saints. For me, though, I got to kick it to Tony, and then I'll wrap it up with our cornerback rankings.
So 2-1 here, right? It's Ravens Steelers for me. I said last week I'm going to try and make a case for the Steelers to be number one. Steelers fans are going to be upset with me. I'm going to put the Steelers 2. Now, I'm going to put the Steelers 2. And I was thinking about this all week. Look, and here's how I'm going to put it for Steeler fans, right? Because Steeler fans, we're very high on our secondary right now, and we should be, right? We should be very high on where the Steelers are right now, especially in the cornerback room. But here's what it is, right? This is, while they're not as good as the Ravens, and we'll talk about why the Ravens are the best cornerback group in the division. This Steelers unit is the best Steelers unit of my life, right? I mean, and look, Rod Woodson's been here. You've got guys like Ike Taylor come in, but all those groups, you had Rod Woodson, and then who's the number 2, who was the number 3 corner at those times? You had Ike Taylor. The best Ike Taylor unit was that 2008 team, and that was Ike Taylor, Brian McFadden, and Deshae Townsend. That was a great unit, but it still wasn't as good as what the Steelers just put out there in 2019. And this has been a team that just has been so bad at corner. I mean, look, I'm wearing Artie Burns. This is the first round corner they got. Okay, and he's a Chicago Bear right now. So yeah, I'm really excited about where this group is. You start with, of course, Joe Hayden, right? I know, and every year we hear the same thing, which is like, well, Joe Hayden's getting up there in years, and he's got all these injuries, and year after year, but the guy just keeps putting out solid season. And look, last year wasn't just a solid season for Joe Hayden. It was almost a career year. He had the most interceptions he's had since his rookie year, 5 interceptions last year. He was great. The real surprise on the unit, though, was Steven Nelson. And Steven Nelson came from the Chiefs as just another guy, right? I mean, this is the Chiefs defense that was the worst in the league when he was on that defense. And so when he came in, obviously it was going to be an upgrade over Artie Burns, but Steeler fans weren't thinking like they were going to get a real shutdown corner. And that's exactly what they got. I mean, you look at the passer rating against numbers, the completion percentage numbers, the yards per catch numbers against other top corners in the game. Steven Nelson's right there. I don't think Steven Nelson gave up a touchdown all of last year. He was incredible. Now, look, he was the number 2 corner, so he wasn't going up against top guys. I get all of that, but he was terrific for what the Steelers needed from him. He came from the Chiefs where he was on a bad defense. Yeah, did the pass rush help him, Sonny? Yes, but remember the Chiefs. I believe that Chiefs defense were number 2 in sacks that year. Again, that was the second worst defense in the league. So at nickel, they have Mike Hilton, who's been very good. The problem for Mike Hilton, and the reason why his numbers are never really going to show, is he gets beat up by bigger guys because he's a small corner, and that's why I believe he was an undrafted player from Ole Miss. It's always going to be a problem for him when he has to go up against the kind of Juju type slot receivers that you're seeing in the modern NFL. He just doesn't have the body type to keep up with those guys. But otherwise, he's a good cover corner, and he's been exactly what the Steelers needed, that corner position. The player that Steeler fans are going to be should be really excited about going into this year is Cam Sutton. Now, the Cam Sutton just been a rotational guy. He got some time last year. He's probably going to end up becoming the nickel corner after Mike Hilton leaves if the Steelers can keep Cam Sutton around. And Sutton's a very versatile player. He can play on the outside. He can play inside. I expect that the Steelers are probably going to play him at safety this year as well because they're going to want to move Minka around. So this is a very deep unit. They're obviously they're top heavy with Hayden and how good he's been. But then Steven Nelson, terrific last year. I will agree with you guys in this, right? And the reason why this is why I could not ever make the case that this team is better than Baltimore is because they did all have career years, right? I mean, this is a unit that every single player on this team, right, the top two, Hayden and Nelson, both had years that were significantly better than their last 2 or 3 years. And so could we see some regression from those guys going into this year? I think yes, right? Especially with a guy like Steven Nelson, who, boy, has never put up numbers as good as he did last year. Could we see some regression from him? Of course we could. And it's not going to take this team from a good team to a bad team. It'll take them from what was a great secondary last year to just a very good secondary, but not better than Baltimore. We'll talk about Baltimore in a second. But for those reasons, the Steelers will be my number 2. Still, though, the best Steelers cornerback group of my life.
Okay, that's not saying much.
It's not
Steven
Nelson.
Steven Nelson did give up 1 touchdown. We will get that correct, but he did play amazing. He did play amazing.
1 PFR says 0. It's it depends on where you go.
This is true. So for me, it pains me, and I think that Tony decided to send Pac-Man Jones a bunch of Joe Hayden signed jerseys this week. Apparently,
we got to talk about this. That is the crazy.
But for me, I think it's the Steelers at number 2. You guys know that I'm a big PFF guy, and game by game, when I go through these things and we get ready for these matchups, I always check out the other team's grading. And I would have never have known anything about Steven Nelson. I've heard Steelers fans talk about him on Twitter, and I did know about Cam Sutton. That was one of those guys. That's one of those guys that you're high in the draft on, and then you say, damn, he just went to Pittsburgh, or he went to Baltimore, or he went to the Browns. So I knew that he was good, but Steven Nelson really opened my eyes, and then, like you said, Mike Hilton. And so I was kind of taken back when I saw that, because I was like, on paper, this just doesn't add up. But they are a very good unit, and that's why I have them number 2. I think the depth that they have, really what really sells me on them is Cam Sutton. Because he just has a lot of potential. I don't think people realize how good he can potentially be. Like Tony said, he can play on the inside and outside. He's a guy that, I definitely would look forward to in the future from them, but they're not in the same class as Baltimore. They're closer to the Browns than they are Baltimore. And so for me, they're number 2. So with that being said, I will give it to Quincy.
So number 1, we're going to go obviously here with Baltimore. I see a big old smile Sonny has on his face. He's so happy for his Baltimore Ravens.
I'm not gonna pull a Tony here. I'm not gonna gloat.
But this is a back-to-back award, though. If we would have did this last year, I think after I came from Ravens camp where I actually met Sonny for the first time, I remember coming away from that like, yo, this secondary is one of the best in the NFL. Then they had some up and downs. They traded for Marcus Peters, and oh boy, they were good last year.
Yeah.
And they're going to be good again this year. For the life of me, I don't know why people are just so keen on underrating Marlon Humphreys and then like inflating how good Marcus Peters is. Marcus Peters is really good, but like he's not better than Marlon Humphreys, like at all in any sense. I think there's some issues that you get with Marcus Peters that are kind of alleviated when you have somebody like Marlon Humphreys on the other side that can take care of some of the guys that are going to give him issues. Like Marlon Humphreys being on Odell is a lot better than Marcus Peters being on Odell, because Marcus Peters is going to bite on a couple double fake, all that stuff that comes with Marcus Peters. But yeah, those two alone, yeah, that's enough, right? Like, because nobody has that like on their secondary. Like, those are 2 guys I would say are easily Pro Bowl corners. You don't really have to make an argument. For the Steelers, I think Steven Nelson's obviously a Pro Bowl corner. But like you kind of have to make the argument for Joe Hayden at this point. Not that Joe Hayden's not good. I love Joe Hayden, but you got to make the argument for Pro Bowl. Same thing with the Browns. They have to win, but Greedy got to get there. And you're kind of depending on him to get there. So yeah, that's enough there. And then they got Jimmy Smith just rolling around there. They had Brandon Carr last year. I don't think they have Brandon Carr anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, like you got Jimmy Smith just kind of looking for a spot. And you got Tavon Young who could turn into something. So yeah, that's pretty good there. No further explanation.
Yeah, I think I had to piggyback off of what Quincy's saying. I mean, when Jimmy Smith is like your backup waiting to get snaps and stuff, when he would start in Cincinnati right now, based off of what we have, I think it's pretty far and clear that the Ravens are the number 1 unit. You got 2 stud corners. Marcus Peters, as well as a guy that I was down on initially just because I had Drake Kirkpatrick syndrome from dealing with those corners from Alabama that have looked better than they really are. But you can't say that about Marlon Humphrey. I mean, he's a proven guy. He's one of the top corners in the NFL. I wish Drake Kirkpatrick played like him, but he did not. But he's one of the top guys. And then you also have, like we said, Jimmy Smith as well there, Tavon Young. The only question is Anthony Everett, but I mean, is he ever going to really get in? I don't know. I don't think so. So I think that this unit far away is the number one unit. And with that said, we'll switch to Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo everything you guys said. You know, when I said about the Browns that Denzel Ward might be the best player in the division overall, Marlon, the reason why he's not is because Marlon Humphrey's in the same division, right? I mean, Marlon Humphrey is right there with him, and it's incredible the rise that he's had. He's a spectacular player. I still have nightmares of the fumble he caused against Juju in a game that, boy, it could have changed the season if the Steelers could have kept that drive alive that was overtime. And he made a fantastic. I'm going to do the Steelers on every one here, Quincy. It's a every single one. I mean, look, the Steelers, could they have upset the Ravens on that day? They could have, but Marlon Humphrey, and that's the kind of thing you want from your top guy, right? Is in those big moments covering their best receiver and making the big play. And in that case, it was a forced fumble. So he's a terrific player. Marcus Peters has always been like an up and down guy, right? You know, he'll have those spectacular moments, but then he'll give up some dumb plays here and there. Boy, did he not give up the dumb plays last year, but boy, did he have so many pick sixes. I mean, the guy was, you know, he did his thing last year. And like you guys said, you know, oh, by the way, they also, if Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Peters were to go down, they also have Jimmy Smith. Oh, and then at nickel, last year they didn't have Tavon Young because he went down with an injury. But they're going to get Tavon Young back, one of the best nickel corners in the game. This was the best secondary in football, maybe not just in the AFC North, right? Not just in the AFC, maybe in the entire NFL, the best secondary. And they didn't even have Tavon Young healthy. That's why when I was looking through this and I'm trying to make the argument, it's like, you're an idiot if you pick the Steelers over the Ravens. You just cannot do it. This is an incredible unit. I actually like Anthony Everett and what he did at Bama. I haven't seen enough of him as a Raven to know if he's made the transition to the NFL, but as a prospect, I liked him. So this is just a top-down great unit. The only thing you could say against the Ravens, if you're going to make any case against them, it would have to be this, that Marcus Peters regresses in a big way because, you know, he had so many spectacular plays. He's due for a bunch of bad moments, right? And then and then you would have to say that Jimmy Smith, just the injury problems that he's had over the past couple of years, hasn't played 16 games in a season in a while. That, okay, you know, that's the only thing. And even if those were to be the case, I think I'd still put them as the number one because Marlon Humphrey's so good and Tavon Young's so good as a nickel. So, Ravens are my number one.
All right. And, of course, we got to bring it home with Sonny, man.
So let me start with this. There was nobody that thought that the Steelers and the Ravens were close. Only you, Tony.
Well, Steelers fans would have made that case. That's what I'm saying. I'm speaking.
I would say
strictly to Steelers fans who are way overhyped about their secondary right now, and they should be.
I think it's what A said. Steelers and Browns, and I think I said it too. They're closer. I think they're very close. I think the Ravens. This is their deepest position. Yes, Humphrey. I think what Quincy said is so true. I don't understand why people have to underrate Humphrey and overrate Peters. Both great corners. In my opinion, Humphrey plays way better. And they actually make Humphrey, because when we lost Tavon Young last year, right? Our slot for a moment was also, you know, we were trying to figure out who to put in a slot. We brought Peters, and then we had Jimmy on the outsides, and we say, Humphrey, you know what? You're in a hell of an outside corner. We're going to kick you inside. And he still performed well. I think he's not as good in the inside as he is on the outside, but he still performed well. And Tavon Young is so overlooked. Now, last year he didn't play, but the year before he played so well that the Ravens gave him a new contract. If he stays healthy, you have a really good, well, not really good, elite three, and Jimmy Smith there ready. Oh, you need a breather? Oncoming. So you have a starter there ready to take snaps for people to have a breather. I think the reason why Peters was so good in the Ravens, and there's something that is not talked enough, is we force with blitzes pressure. Now, we weren't creating sacks. What a blitz provokes is a quarterback to not have that much time to have a read.
We talking about pressure.
My point is that forces the quarterback to not have enough time to read, to throw the ball high, and that's where Peters lives. For that, because he has sticky hands, he can react. Where Peters is not good is where the quarterback has time, bite on a double move, gets burned on the outside, right? But in the Ravens system, where they were blitzing and they were the team that blitzed the most, he thrived. I think this again, this is where the Baltimore Ravens thrive. This is the deepest position. I think they had the best cornerback room in the entire league.
Yeah, it's certainly right up there. I mean, if they're not, they're number 2, right? I don't even know who you put above them. I think they probably are the best corners. But if you could make an argument against them, I mean, the Ravens would be a very close number 2. Yeah.
Yep. So that wraps up the cornerback section. So this show is actually going to be about the secondary. So you can't have corners without safeties. And so now we're moving on to the safety position. And so now we're going to essentially rate these from 4 to 1, like we normally do. So I think we'll start with Tony here.
Yeah,
I really want these guys to tell me how they have 3 starting quality safeties like the Bengals. So Tony, go ahead, give me your. Let me get your 4.
I like this. I like the fight. Okay.
Let me get your 4. Let me get your number 4.
All right, number 4. And they might have been look. If I could and I've done this whole thing where I don't take rookies into account for this exercise. Okay, now I could probably put this team number 3 if I did take rookies into account, but I'm not. So I'm going to say the Browns. Now, I love Grant Delpit. Love Grant Delpit like I love Greedy Williams. When I talked about the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, right, the player that I always talked about, if the Steelers, let's say the Steelers had a top 5 pick, right, everybody told me, well, the Steelers traded away a first-round pick. They could have taken a quarterback. And I kept saying, no, they would take Grant Delpit. They would take a safety. That's who they want. And I thought Grant Delpit was that guy, a top 5 type pick. Now, he had a down year in his senior year. You know, he had that ankle problems, missed tackles and whatnot. I still think this guy's going to be a phenomenal pro. Phenomenal. And it kills me that the Browns got him. But I can't take it into account for this thing, so I have to put the Browns forward. They have Carl Joseph. They have Andrew Sendejo. They put together a solid unit overall. I actually like the unit, mostly because of Grant Delpit, though. And I can't take it into account here. So for those reasons, I'm going to have the Browns 4. But again, I like that unit, and I love me some Grant Delpit.
I mean, while you guys come here, the must-see TV is Quincy versus Tony. So it's only right that we go to Quincy right after Tony.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm for Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, of course. Do it. I would love to hear this. Please make a rational argument to put the Steelers with the best safety in football as the 4th best unit.
The best safety in football.
Yeah, Minkah Fitzpatrick was a first-team All-Pro. He's literally voted the best safety in football last year. First-team All-Pro. Yes.
That's all hype. Garbage. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Right.
Is Minkah even better than Derwin?
First of all, Derwin didn't play last year, so we're talking about a guy coming off of injury. And yes, he was better than Derwin.
That's another conversation.
Also, they play different positions. I mean, Derwin's an in-the-box safety.
That's true.
I don't even know if Minkah's the best safety on his team.
Oh yeah.
No, okay, I'm done.
Hey, listen, please, no, do that. Terrell Edmonds.
I'm done. All right. But let's be honest, though.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, this is Pittsburgh secondary. Like, without Minkah Fitzpatrick last year, they were pretty garbage. And then Minkah comes together. Oh, boom, we got this great secondary. We got this great safety room. It's top 5. I don't know if I buy that. Now, I am going to stand by putting Pittsburgh here at 4. I'm actually going to stand by putting Pittsburgh here at 4. Even though I think they have the 2nd best safety in the AFC North, I still would take Earl Thomas over Minkah Fitzpatrick any day of the week. I'm sorry, Tony.
But that's great company to have. I mean, listen, I'm actually okay with that because you're putting him in the same group as one of the best safeties of all time.
Well, I mean, he's not Earl Thomas anymore.
Earl Thomas, best safety, one of the best safeties of all time.
Yeah, so he was in Seattle. He's not that in Baltimore. He's really good still.
He was excellent last year.
He was pretty good. He had some mishaps. Sonny, we all know about the mishaps and the big quotes every time you put him out there. But
he didn't tackle Derrick Henry. No one else did either.
No, there were multiple ones. There was the one where he was like, no big plays for the Chiefs. Gave up a bunch of big plays. And there was the one against the Browns where he's like, yeah, I'm tired of the hype. I'm about to shut him down. And then he specifically got ran all over by Nick Chubb. So, like, he had his moments last year of like, yo, Earl, would you shut up? But anyways, back to the number 4 ranked
back to the
here in
Steelers.
the safety room. Because I don't know if Minka's impact last year is kind of fairly stated to what it actually was, because like it's just kind of weird to me. A guy who was just pretty average in Miami for 3 years, goes to Pittsburgh, has a great year. I don't know why we think this is like a short thing. We should talk about this in the same way we talk about every other corner that's had a one good year. Is this going to be consistent? Is this going to happen? Is he going to play at that level again? I don't know if that answer is yes. I think there might have been some things that he just kind of got off on, and then like some of the interceptions, he was just in the right place, right time. I don't know about it, but he's a B+ safety to me. He's a B+ safety to me. And then you have Terrell Edmonds. I'm not a big fan of Terrell Edmonds. Cameron Sutton,
he's trash.
Cameron Sutton,
garbage. He's trash.
More of a corner than
Allen, yeah.
We're not talking about the depth. We're not talking about the depth. We're not talking about the depth. We're not taking depth into account. Hold on.
Yeah, because injuries never happen.
Yeah, no.
This was one of the worst safety rooms in the. This is one of the worst safety rooms in the AFC North last year at the beginning of the season.
Okay, all right.
You got one player who was average in Miami. All of a sudden, everything starts to click. Now, Minka might be that great. He might be that great, but if he was that great, why didn't it click in Miami? I don't know. I think there are some questions that need to be answered about this secondary. I think this secondary is a lot more fragile than people give it credit for. So, and then also, let's just settle this right here. Minka Fitzpatrick was not a defensive player of the year candidate last year. That was ridiculous. That was. Can we admit that was a little ridiculous?
I believe he got a vote. And I got to look this up. I believe he got a vote. Yeah, so he was in contention. He got a vote for defensive player of the year. Therefore, he was in contention.
We all know.
Why do I got to look all this stuff off? All the things I thought were going to get said tonight. Minka Fitzpatrick is a B+ safety. Is not one that I saw coming. So I apologize.
He was a C safety in Miami. I'm at least giving him his credit.
He was a C safety. Yeah, he was C. I believe PFF had him as the best nickel corner in his rookie year in Miami. And unfortunately, PFF doesn't put these freaking grades out by what they're graded position.
Balling out in Miami last year when he was in Miami. We were like, oh man, he's balling out in Miami. Nobody's watching, but he wasn't balling out in Miami. He was getting blown out like everybody else.
I gotta look this up too. I mean, this is gonna be like a 9-hour show of just me looking up freaking quotes on his. Okay, it's good. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are you done, Quincy? You finished or you done? Fourth? Gotcha.
I got 2 more minutes, sir. Fourth ranked safety room. I stand by it, and I think this would be even more prevalent and revolutionary and remarkable. People are going to come back here at the end of the season and be like, man,
wow, yeah,
low-key a profit for that one. Came out here like against the grain. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Nobody said that this would be the case, that the Steelers would have the worst secondary room in the AFC North. But I told you this here right now. I see through the weeds. I don't have my rose-tinted glasses on. I'm telling you right now, this is an average safety room. And in the AFC North, average at the bottom. Yeah, I said it.
Woo.
Just out.
Damn.
All right, let's go to.
Can't say nothing.
I gotta hear what Sonny's gonna say now. Sonny, what's your choice here, my friend?
I mean, it's hard to come up to that, in my opinion, hot take. I mean, I would say Quincy made a lot of good points there.
Oh yeah, a lot of great points. I muted myself.
But I would say my fourth is actually the Browns, and the reason why is it's what we have been doing, right? I do agree with Tony. I think Delpit is. I like him coming out of college. And I think if you play him right out, it will be kind of similar to Minka Fitzpatrick factor, because the Ravens played Minka last year in Miami and in the Steelers. And I can tell you what was the difference that I know, but I'll talk to that when I talk about the Steelers. I think I have the Browns fourth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where they're going to end. I think they have the potential to be. I mean, I think actually in the division, the safety rooms are pretty good. The Steelers, agreeing with Quincy here. I think if the Steelers lose Minka, they're one of the worst in the league. But Minka is that good, in my opinion. So for now, I will put the Browns at 4th, but I think they can progress and be 3rd or 2nd in the division.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like saying when the Steelers had AB, right? If AB goes down, they have the worst wide receiver group. Well, no, duh. AB is the best wide receiver in the game.
No, you guys still had Martavis. You had
No. There was a time. Martavis. Listen,
Martavis and Juju. Martavis and Juju.
No. They had Juju for 1 year. I'm
talking about the year
better than
Juju.
James Washington. Juju. The year before Juju. I'm about the year before.
And by the way,
Martavis was never. No.
You lost Antonio Brown. Did you not have one of the worst wide receiver rooms?
Martavis Bryant's weakness was weed. That was his only.
Well, yeah. No, listen. He was ahead of his time because right now he'd have played. He'd have been a Hall of Famer if he's rookie year.
He was an amazing player. We always had to account for him for sure. We couldn't just like double AB and just let him run free.
Yeah.
By the way, could you imagine the all AFC North commissioner exempt list team with Martavis Bryant on one side and then like prime Josh Gordon on the other side? Who's stopping that?
Definitely. Well, so that brings it to me to be the tiebreaker here. And you guys have made some very compelling cases here. I think that Minka is very good. I don't believe that he's the best safety in the league by far at all. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that, except
just like fans. Everyone who has an All-Pro vote, but that's only them.
I mean, is he an All-Pro safety? Yeah, I could say that, but can I say that he's better than Earl Thomas? No, I cannot. Can I say that he's better than Harrison Smith? No, I cannot. There's a lot of safeties that I'm gonna say before I name Minka Fitzpatrick, and. For me, I think that he's a very good safety, but I think what I'm looking at and what we've done in some cases, now we have talked about rookies that way, but we have also kind of used them as well. And I think when I just look at Carl Joseph and Grant Delpit, that looks like a decent like safety tandem to me. Like Minka Fitzpatrick looks good, but when I see Terrell Edmonds, it's like, yeah. It's like, is he really that good? And like people said, if there is an injury that would happen, I mean, it's one of the worst units in the NFL. I mean, it is. And so for that reason, there's 2 safeties that play on the field, not one. Okay, you don't line up with just Minka out there by himself. So, with that being said, I'm going with the Steelers.
Yes!
I cannot with this. You're one of the worst units in the league. Okay.
Yes!
Carl Joseph is pretty good when healthy.
I love it. Keep going. Let's keep going.
And Grant Delpit was a guy that was, fringe first rounder. Didn't expect him to fall there. I'm pretty sure everyone on this podcast, now we can't all agree on this. Everyone on this podcast, when Grant Delpit fell to the second round to Cleveland and he was taken, we all said, when that happened. Yeah, did we all? Okay, we all did. Okay.
I thought it was a great pick, and I thought the same thing for Gritty last year.
So Tony, I'm gonna give you a lifeline here. We're gonna go back to you for number 3 for your safety pick.
Wait, you can talk about number 3 if it's not the Steelers, by the way.
It's not the Steelers. Shocker! I didn't put the Steelers 3. I have the Steelers 2. This is gonna be a weird one. All right, number 3 then is gonna be the Bengals. Now I have to bring this back to the Steelers. So I'm gonna do it in this way. The Bengals unit, right? You have Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Sean Williams. I'm gonna forget someone, but those are the big 3. Jesse Bates. Yeah, Jesse Bates was I'm not going to make a case for Steelers 1. I'm make a case for Steelers 2. I contrary to popular belief, I'm a rational thinking human. But you may not know that on this show. So Jesse Bates. What am I talking about? I'm losing it tonight. Jesse Bates should have been the Steelers' first round pick when they took Terrell Edmonds. The Steelers needed a deep safety that year. They needed a free safety. They didn't have one. They brought in Morgan Burnett, and they had Sean Davis, who was already a strong safety. They really had 2 strong safeties. They drafted Terrell Edmonds, and every Steeler fan was scratching their head thinking, what in the world is this team doing? Who are they going to play at deep safety? Now, they ended up playing Sean Davis that year. Sean Davis was fine, but Jesse Bates, really has been a fantastic player for the Bengals. I don't know if last year if he was as good as his rookie year, but I know his rookie year he was phenomenal. And Steeler fans were looking at just across the way in the division here and saying like, what were we doing not picking Jesse Bates when he's exactly the kind of player that they needed? So, I like that pick a lot. Obviously, bringing in Von Bell from New Orleans is a solid pick up there. I like this unit. Now, the one thing I will say about Jesse Bates is I'm kind of glad in the long run that the Steelers did not take Jesse Bates, because if they did, well, they wouldn't have traded for Minkah. And while I like Jesse Bates, he's no Minkah Fitzpatrick, and we'll get to that here in a minute. I don't know how I have to make this case for Minkah here in a minute, but this is just it's been a ride, guys. We're 50 minutes in, and it feels like we're about 4 hours in. This has been a roller coaster so far. The Bengals, though, number 3.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go with Quincy next.
I'll put the Browns here at number 3. I like the upside. I think they have a pretty even decent floor there with Sadejo who can step in. I don't think Grant Delpit's going to be a negative like in his first year. At the worst case, I think he's just going to be a standard free safety. The best case, he could be a pretty big playmaker in that role. But you also have Carl Joseph. I like Carl Joseph a lot. He gets a run, and he actually grades out pretty well on PFF. I think he's around like a 70. So that's pretty good value there for a guy on a 1-year deal. Kind of going to play a similar role to like a Chuck Clark in Baltimore. Obviously, no Earl Thomas next to him. But again, just a lot of solid guys up there. And then you have the added versatility plus upside of a guy like Grant Delpit to add in there that I think is something that you should look at. And I think they have a little bit more depth than Pittsburgh.
Okay. Let's go with Sonny. Who's your number 3 team?
So my number 3 team, this I debated hard between 3 and 2. I have to give it to the Steelers.
You can't hurt me anymore. No, like you can't. I'm numb at this point. You guys can't hurt me. It's literally you can say anything right now, and I don't even know what's happening.
This is the reason. Now I will agree with something here with Tony. I think Minkah in the Steelers system is an A player. I won't give him a B. He was.
You want to give him a plus? You want to give him an A plus? Maybe we'll throw a plus on there. We'll just throw a plus.
I don't know about a plus, but I also agree with this. He played the best safety in the AFC North last year. The problem is after that is so bad. And my number 2, which I will discuss later, I think is they don't have the A type of safety, but they have Bs, right? And it's just Minkah gets an ankle roll and has to miss 20 snaps, and it's gonna be so bad for this team. So
let's not forget, safeties get hurt a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's a physical position out there. This isn't a protected position like quarterback where injuries are rare.
Ravens lost Tony Jefferson last year for the whole year in week 4.
Yeah, he popped his Achilles. Morgan Burnett for the Browns popped his Achilles. Hey,
so my point is, I think Minkah's a great player. And I said I was gonna look. Tony, you mentioned something that we might slide Minkah on the slot. When Minkah was in the slot against the Ravens, week 1, on the island against Hollywood Brown had one of his best games of the year when Minkah was just by itself, man to man, against Hollywood in the slot. I think the reason why Minkah was so much better in the Steelers was because they let him be that free safety. And again, with the pressure the Steelers generate, I think it was a perfect fit. Like I said with Peters, I think Peters fit well how the Ravens was playing the defense. I think it's the same case for Minkah. Now, again, my whole point is Minkah was great. You can argue that he was slightly better than Earl overall this year, but second tier or second one, that compadre that next to him, it's a lot to be desired from that dude. So I'm gonna give them 3.
Okay. Yeah, for me, obviously number 3 I think has to be the Browns because you're waiting on some potential there, especially at that second safety position with Grant Delpit. But I mean, honestly, I think like Sonny's alluding to, it comes down to 2 teams in this division. And I like how Tony said that Jesse Bates would never do anything like Minkah Fitzpatrick. That same rookie year that he talked about, they literally had close to the same grade. But what did Minkah do before that? Minkah Fitzpatrick had an overall grade of 61 before Pittsburgh. So
he got burnt in week 1.
Is he gonna be that 78? He could continue to be that. I'm not gonna say that Minkah Fitzpatrick's gonna be a bust or anything by that nature, but that was his first season. It has a potential to go downhill, and I think if Tony is saying that he's the best safety in the league, he can only go down at this point. So for me, that's why I think that the Browns are essentially going to be the number 3. So let's move into number 2.
Tony should go because this is the Steelers position for him.
Let's go with Tony.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. You want me to do this if Minkah gets like with a healthy Minkah Fitzpatrick? Am I grading them or am I grading them with an injured? I love that the big hate. Listen, here's what we're hearing tonight. Okay, Minkah wasn't good as a Dolphin, and so that's why he's not a good safety. And he also could get hurt, so he's not. So he can't be the best in the division. For those reasons, let's go over why Minkah
Fitzpatrick was 61.9 in Miami. He was 79.8.
You cannot grade. Okay, PFF is not the end all be all of everything. As far as player evaluation. Okay,
that's fair.
Look, let's go over just kind of what he meant for the defense. Let's start there. Let's just start before we get into like individual, how many interceptions did he have, right? I'll talk about how many pressures he had. We got some interesting numbers coming up. Right. Let's just talk about what he meant for the defense as far as how they performed before he got there as a unit and then after he got there, right? Because we have sample sizes for this. Okay, there were 3 games prior and then there were 13 games after. The 3 games prior to him arriving there. Now, we've already talked about every position on this team. We talked about defensive line. We talked about edge rusher, inside linebacker, corner. We put the Steelers 1 at the defensive line, 1 at edge rusher, 1 at inside linebacker, and there was a debate between 2 and 3 at corner, right? Okay, that's the unit that they had last year. They didn't lose anybody from last year's unit. We're talking about weeks 1 through 3. That is the exact same unit they're playing this year. That unit, if you go by expected points against or Football Outsiders DVOA, they were at best the 20th best offense through 3 weeks last year. Okay. Wow. Then Minkah Fitzpatrick gets on board. They are the best defense in the league by any advanced metric you want to use. DVOA, you want to use expected points, doesn't matter. They were the best defense in the league after Minkah Fitzpatrick got there. 20th before, first after. The guy is an absolute game changer. And you can look at certain games. You can look at his performance against the Rams, where he single-handedly changed that game. You can look at the one that I think everyone will point to as a Steeler fan, the one where he absolutely changed the game against the Colts. The Colts are driving down, pick 6 from Minkah, touchdown. The guy as a safety is incredible. Now, you can talk about his time in Miami, where was he spectacular on every down? No, and that's why he got out of there, because he felt like he was used incorrectly. The Steelers used him last year 800 snaps at free safety. In Miami, okay, let's go over his snaps in Miami, because he was only used as a free safety in Miami, I believe, 200 or so times, maybe 150 times. He was also used as a slot corner. He was also used on the outside, okay? He very much disagreed with where he was being used. He felt like he was being underutilized. That's why he said, I want to get out of here. He forced his way out. That's why he got traded. Remember, Miami didn't want to trade him. They only traded
that is fair, guys. Again, I saw him a lot in the slot he got torched. This is why when Tony mentioned...
But the thing when Minkah Fitzpatrick was coming out of college that made him so great was that he could do that, because you could line him up at corner and you could put him at safety, and he was extremely versatile. That was the whole thing.
Not at this point in his career. Look, not at this point in his career, and he would tell you that.
This is why when you said earlier, like, oh, we might kick Minkah as a slot, I was like,
yeah. Well, I think the Steelers want to use him in more versatile ways, because what happened at the end of last year, right? And the reason why his PFF grade is not 90 plus, okay, is because at the end of last year, teams just stopped going his way, right? And it became a little too vanilla from a defensive perspective, where everyone knew that Minkah was going to be your deep guy, right? Every single play, we knew that's where Minkah was playing all year. I think the Steelers wanted this year be a little more versatile with him and just have a little more of a question mark in the quarterback's head pre-snap of where is Minkah going to be on this play. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick was an absolute game changer last year for this team. It's why he was voted all team for. Let's understand what first team all pro means. Okay, this is where all of the writers get together and they vote on the best player at each position. Okay, Minkah Fitzpatrick was one of the best 2 safeties in the game last year. And for very good reason. This guy absolutely altered the course of Steelers defensive history. Pre-Minkah Fitzpatrick, this was an average defense that was getting better. After he got there, they were the best defense in the league by any advanced metric. I have no problem putting Minkah there. Now, where you guys are absolutely right and where I won't disagree with you guys is when we come to Terrell Edmunds. Terrell Edmunds to this point has been a disappointment. There's no other way to put it. Okay, and a lot of people get on him for his coverage numbers. And look, the guy I believe had a passer rating against last year of like 134. Something real bad, okay? It was real bad. He really struggles in coverage, and it's something that when he came to the NFL, I was very disappointed. You can actually go on YouTube and look up my reaction to the Steelers taking Terrell Edmunds. I was not happy. I was not happy that night, and it's for all the reasons that we've seen. Like he's just not great in coverage. Now the Steelers have done a good job with him, especially with Minkah Fitzpatrick alongside him, of not asking him to be that kind of deep half as much. They want to be more in the box. They want to play better against the run. He needs to get better there, though. You can look, if you go back, if you want to really hate on Terrell Edmunds, just go back and watch that Seattle tape, because the Steelers defense that day didn't have a terrible day. Terrell Edmunds had a terrible day. He got picked on by Russ. He got picked on by DK Metcalf. He's got to get better in coverage. But here's the thing about Terrell Edmunds. He's only 22 years old. So he's got a lot of room to grow here just from kind of a maturity perspective. It actually reminds me of guys like Stephon Tuitt, who came in the league very young, early on in his career, not great, but you want to see him grow over time. And now finally, he's blossoming as he get into his mid-late 20s. That's the only hope for Edmunds at this point. Look, Edmunds is at best a cog in the wheel of what is a great Steeler defense. I would much rather have some of the other guys we talked about on this list playing strong safety. There's no doubt about it. Terrell Edmunds, you can make a case, is maybe the worst strong safety in the division. But I'm gonna give him his upside and say, look, this is a guy who can still grow. Obviously, I'm not gonna put them any higher on this list because of Terrell Edmunds' factor. And then look, we go to depth behind, and look, Curtis Riley just got brought in to finally be someone who could play free. For whatever reason, the Steelers love going into a season with only one guy who can play free safety. Maybe because they just believe Edmunds can do it, but they were going to do it this year, and then they got Curtis Riley. He can actually play some deep safety if Minkah were to go down. They also have Jordan Dangerfield. They have Marcus Allen. These are guys who are going to more play in the box. Oh, one thing I should say about Terrell Edmunds that'll be interesting this year, and we heard this last offseason. It didn't happen, but it may happen now because usually these things take some time, is we may see Terrell Edmunds start playing more inside linebacker. You may start seeing more of that. And then Edmunds, Edmunds isn't playing safety at all. That may actually happen this year with a guy like Riley coming in because I think the Steelers, look, they have Vince Williams right now. He's a fine player, but Edmunds in that role could be a little more dynamic and maybe better suit him in certain situations. So look for that as well. But the Steelers are going to be my number 2. It's all about Minkah here. You guys are right about Edmunds. He's certainly got to get better as a player, but I'm not going to let you guys hate on Minkah. He was the best safety in the league last year.
In the league. Wow. All right. He said it again.
Last year. Yeah, last year.
So for me with the Minkah Fitzpatrick thing, I get it, but I'm pretty sure 90% of the reason that he wanted to get traded away from Miami, it was because Miami sucked and was obviously tanking at the time. Like, I don't think it had to be that, because when Minkah came out, there was the debate between who's better, Minkah or Derwin. I was on the Derwin side. This was before he was a Steeler or anything. But the thing that separated those two guys is, like you said before, Derwin's a box safety. But the whole rave about Minkah was you can put him at corner. You can do all of this. So, like, Miami did that, and he's saying that he didn't agree with it. I'm not buying that. I think that the fact that they were obviously taken for Tua last year, he was like, I'm not a part of this. I'm out of here. But he was a great safety. Don't get it twisted. We don't think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is trash. We're just saying we've seen what he did in Miami, and what he's doing in Pittsburgh is totally different. And he definitely did take you guys to another level. But you also have to account for the fact that you guys got TJ Watt and all those amazing edge rushers as well.
Okay, can I read it? Yeah, this is a quote. This is a quote from Terrell Edmunds right after he got traded. I was working the hand fighting drills against the tight ends, hitting the bag, stuff like that. That's fine and dandy, but that wasn't my skill set. We had a difference of opinion in my skill set and what he thought I could do and what I thought I could do. It was going to be tough for me to show something to somebody where they're choosing not to see. They didn't give me an opportunity to show it, even though I had film that showed it. That was what he said about his time in Miami. He did not like the way that they were using. That is why he got traded.
To get traded. They'd be like, "Oh,
everybody was like, come get me."
Odell said that when he got traded to Cleveland. He was like, "Yeah, well, now I can do more because I'm opened up. I mean, he had 1,000 yards this year. All right, so like everybody said that.
He said that.
That sounds better than I quit on my team.
Okay,
that
he
sounds
said
a lot
that about
better
his
than
skill set, where they used him as an outside corner, a slot corner, a safety, box safety. They use him in all those different ways. Then he goes to Pittsburgh. He gets used as a free safety exclusively and turns into one of the best. So maybe he was lying. He's lying about it. He just happened to be right in his lie. Okay, I'll go with that too.
Tony, though, you mentioned something, and then it's like it hit you in the face and you didn't see it. You were like, yeah, we ranked the Steelers defensive line number 1. Their edge rushers number 1. Their linebackers number 1.
Yeah. And they were 20th in the league without Minka. 20th in the league. That was my point.
They played the Seahawks in New England at that point. They played 2 of the best offensive players at that point.
No.
And Ben had a torn elbow.
DVOA is adjusted for opponent. It's adjusted for your opponent. DVOA is adjusted for opponent.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. What else was going on? Tony, what else was going on during those 2 games?
What do you mean what else is going on? This is only...
No.
Okay. It's all good. Let's reel it back in.
What's going on?
Minka Fitzpatrick is a good safety. All right. So we got Tony giving his number 2. Let's move on to Quincy. Who do you think is the second unit in the division?
If I told you that the Bengals had the best run stuffing safety in this division, you wouldn't believe me, but they do. Von Bell has a better run stuffing number than Minka, has a better run stuffing number than anybody on the Ravens. It has a better run stuffing number than Carl Joseph. So yeah, that's pretty good there for Cincinnati there. And they have 2, like Ace said earlier, 2 other starting level corners. Safeties and Trayvon Henderson. They have Jesse Bates. I really like what the Bengals have. I think they have a really solid rotation there. I think it's going to be able to make up for some of their, deficiencies, in my opinion, at the cornerback position, and some of the deficiencies at linebacker for them. And it's going to be able to make sure they don't get gashed deep down the field last year. Now, I don't know specifically who this was, Ace or Tony. You'll be able to remind me better. But there was a play, and I think this is what Duck was playing against Cincinnati, where like somebody got this fluke deep ball, and it was like the worst play I've ever seen.
Incorrect. I know exactly.
Somebody tell me who that was.
How dare you? Listen, I got so upset about Minka. I'm going to get even more upset. You're bad mouthing 2 of my favorite players of all time, Duck Hodges to James Washington. Okay, we're talking about.
That was what it was.
One of the best wide receivers.
I was like, come on. It was worse than
the slander. The slander on tonight's podcast is out of control.
That was the worst thing I've ever seen. But yeah, hopefully they are not playing whoever the hell that was for the Bengals, because that was one of the worst fundamental football plays I ever. I remember I was angry because the Browns needed them to lose that game or something like that, and they just let that happen. So yeah, I like what the Bengals have out there. Fun note on Duck Hodges. I actually saw Duck Hodges when he was in college at Samford against my alma mater, Youngstown State, and we beat him by like 35 points. So Duck for the win. Definitely.
All right, so that brings us to Sonny.
Okay, so my number 2 is also the Bengals. Look, the reason is, and I said I alluded to it earlier. I said the Steelers have a safety, and then after that they have just garbage. And I think the Bengals have a lot of really good safeties, right? I think they're more B safeties, and they get the job done. So the Bengals are just solid, as Quincy was saying. Russ against the run, they're really good. Against the coverage, they're okay. Not as good as against the run, but not bad either. It's just as an overall group, and again, if I was ranking here, credit for Tony, if I was ranking player by player, it might have been Minka, and then we might not talk about any other Steelers until like I don't know. 10.
I think that's fair. No, I'm not even going to disagree with that. Yeah. I'm not telling you Terrell Edmonds is one of the best safeties in the division. Absolutely not.
But with the Bengals, we might talk about 5th and 4, or like So the top 2 safeties are very close, in that, and because the safety is not a safety, is the 2, and then you can still consider the depth. I think the safeties of the Bengals are a number 2 over the Steelers.
Okay, so for me, it's gonna be the Ravens for me. I think Earl Thomas is far and away the best safety in the division. I don't think that there's really a comparison there. Based off of what the guy has done his career. I mean, I've loved Earl Thomas from day one. And when the Ravens went out and got him, I was like, oh, now he did get trucked by Derrick Henry, but he's still a great safety. He's got excellent ball skills, always has. But for me, the Ravens are number 2. And I don't want to be down on Chuck Clark, because Chuck Clark is not a bad safety. The reason that I put the Ravens 2 is if you take any of the 3 of the Bengals safeties, whether it's Sean Williams, whether it's Jesse Bates, whether it's Von Bell, I think that they're starting in this division for any of the other teams in here and some other teams in the NFL. So it's not a knock against them there, but I think when you talk about the NFL using 3 safety looks, and every defense is different, but there are teams that use 3 safety looks. And if you were to do that with the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns, I don't think any of them would match up with what the Bengals have to offer with Von Bell, Sean Williams, and Jesse Bates, which when we first signed Von Bell, most people were thinking, okay, that means that we're going to cut Sean Williams. But apparently our defense coordinator wants to use some 3 safety looks, wants to use Sean Bell and Von Bell to throw different kind of coverages out there. Yes, he was Von Bell. That is true. Von Bell at times had some issues in coverage. But from what I've studied, he's always been in position there. It hasn't been something where he's just constantly burned or something like that. And he's had up and down situations when it comes to that. He's had other years in New Orleans where he was great in coverage. But he's just a versatile guy that's just too small to essentially play linebacker. So for me, given the versatility, which you can do in all of the looks, I think the sum of those 3 guys together is greater than what the Ravens have, but I make no mistakes about it. I think Earl Thomas is easily far and away the best safety in the division. So with that being said, let's go to number 1. We'll start back with Tony again.
Yeah, this is like corner. This was just another easy one. Earl Thomas was fantastic last year, and then the thing for me, I mean, well, look, we could talk about Earl. I'm sure Sonny's going to go on a big thing about how good Earl Thomas is. And look, he was exactly what they needed, right? I think I talked about this last week when we talked about they lose Eric Weddle and they sign Earl Thomas. Fantastic. They did the same thing this year with Calais Campbell on their defensive line. What can you say about Earl Thomas? I think the thing about this safety group that gets overlooked is Chuck Clark. I think Chuck Clark was very good for them last year, and I think if there's just as a Steeler fan, if I'm looking at a player who I would hope Terrell Edmonds could turn into, is more of a Chuck Clark type of player. Chuck Clark is, as a safety was fantastic, able to get up there in run defense and make some plays, but also in coverage, be in that spot. And I think that's what made this unit so good is like, there wasn't a weakness. I think that the problem for the Steelers right now is that they still have that Terrell Edmonds weakness. And so they, if you're going to put Terrell Edmonds up against a Travis Kelce, it is still a problem for that team. The Ravens don't have that weakness, and it's why not only do they have the best cornerback group in the division, but they also have the best safety group. And so, yeah, this was an easy one for me. I think Earl Thomas fantastic, but Chuck Clark, super underrated as a safety for them as well.
And then we'll go to. I guess we can go. Does that wrap up? I think the second ones you said that's your first one, right?
That was my number one. Yeah, that was my number one.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. Let's go to Sonny.
Yeah, for me the Ravens as well. I think Earl Thomas this year will get better because he said it when he got to the Ravens that this was a very complex system. He came from the same system for I don't know how many years in Seattle, and it was a more vanilla system. And he said like, dude, this system is very complex. It's very hard to get into it. I think as the year progressed, you can see him playing better than the beginning. So I can only imagine that this year, again, same continuity, he will get better. In the case of Chuck Clark, he's so underrated. He came to start in week 5 after Tony Jefferson went out. And not only that, I think by week 7 or 8, he was also wearing the mic, the green dot. And that made our defense gel. He was the captain of the defense, essentially. He was there calling the plays, and the guys on the defense would tell you, like, Clark is the one putting everybody in position. So that's an aspect that people don't even think. Usually you have a middle linebacker calling the plays, right? Being that Mike guy. We had Clark doing it from the safety situation. It was just amazing. Then we have Levine as a hybrid guy that we use. A lot of Browns fans remember him from that week 17 the year before. And we have other 2 young guys that we'll see if they pay out. A guy like, we call him Baltimore the Joker, Sean Elliott. I love him coming out of college from Texas, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy, right? So
does he play more deep safety or is he more in the box?
In my opinion, he's better as a free.
As a free?
In my opinion, he's better as a free. So, but even that, now we're talking about the 4 safety. But the top 3, especially the top 2, Clark as the dot guy calling the plays, Earl Thomas spectacular again, year into the system. I think he will get better this year. I think it's the Ravens. I think the Bengals, in my opinion, had a case, but the Ravens have the A player and the B player, as I think is what I will call Earl and Clark.
No,
you're gonna need that Deshaun Elliott just in case Earl Thomas gets hurt. Very,
True.
You need that deep room. It's important.
Definitely, it is. It is Cincinnati. We know all about injuries. Trust me, Quincy.
But yeah, so I'm gonna go Ravens here, number 1. I don't know how much I buy Earl Thomas, veteran in the NFL, being like, oh, this defense is complicated and that's why he struggled in year 1. I don't know how much I buy that, but I think Earl Thomas, regardless of what defense he's in or what situation he's put in, he's always going to be some level of Earl Thomas, which is what separates the great safeties from, the good ones, like Aminka, who, wasn't that great in Miami, but, was better in Pittsburgh. I don't think Earl Thomas has ever been like, I'm not in the right position, but, we'll make that argument later. Chuck Clark.
He flicked off his coach. Come on. He hated his time in Seattle.
And he still was balling. That's how you know. Mika was mad, and then he got burnt against Baltimore. Earl Thomas got mad, cussed his coach out, and still balled, and got his ACL torn and came back and played well. But when we talk about where was I? Oh, with Chuck Clark, I think you could actually make a similar argument for Chuck Clark that a lot of people make for Mika. Not comparing the 2 players, but the arguments are the same, right? Because Tony Jefferson, when he was on that Ravens defense, that was the Ravens defense that was like iffy against the Chiefs, really not great against the Browns or Baker Mayfield at over 300 yards, over 60% completion, no interception. I think that's like the best game he had that entire season against the Ravens secondary, which is unheard of, but it was a different secondary when Tony Jefferson's there. Unfortunately, he goes out. I don't think he's going to have a career again, so I'm not going to celebrate that by any means. But Chuck Clark comes in. Now this is the defense that we thought it was going to be at the start of camp, right? The secondary shapes up. Now, does that have to do with one player just fitting a need that the defense needed, and maybe that put all the pieces together and made everything run home on time, and that maybe that guy's not the best defensive player in the NFL because of that? No, but Chuck Clark filled that role, made everything come on time, and had that Minka-like impact on the Baltimore Ravens secondary.
Well, they also got Marcus Peters, though. I think Marcus Peters had a big effect on that defense as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he definitely had an impact. But the cornerbacks were deep in Baltimore before Marcus Peters came there. That was just bonus points. I think like I said, the Steelers were, by all advanced metrics, like after week 3, they were. I think the Ravens. If you ask any Ravens fan or anybody who watched the Ravens play last year, they would tell you that Chuck Clark's play once Tony Jefferson went down probably had a lot more of an impact on wins and losses, because Tony Jefferson was legitimately like a big problem on the defense for like a few weeks.
No, I think the Ravens the Ravens had one of the best defenses at the end of the year. I mean, I think like if you looked at just their last 8-10 games of the year last year, I think the Ravens were actually the best defense in the league. outside of that game against Tennessee.
Chuck Clark should have got some Defensive Player of the Year votes.
I know, right?
He split the vote. The problem is he split the votes with Marcus Peters. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. One defense. Well, we'll get into that later. But yeah, I think the Ravens had an excellent secondary. Still have an excellent secondary. I think Chuck Clark is very underrated with what he does. I think he, like another guy that we like to talk about on this podcast a lot, had the Josh Bynes like impact. Where he came in, made sure everything was right where it had to be. Like those three guys, L.J. Fort, Josh Bynes, and Chuck Clark, really had the impact that Minkah Fitzpatrick had for the Steelers defense. It's better to spread that out within those three guys. So, will Earl Thomas still be Earl Thomas next year? I think you're going to get out of Earl Thomas what you got out of Earl Thomas this year. I don't think he's going to be any better next year, but I think that's still very good. And then again, I like the depth. I like some of the pieces behind Earl Thomas. I like some of the depth pieces they have there, so they can withstand an injury, unlike a team that's ranked fourth on this rank. So with all that considered, that's why I would have Baltimore as a clear number one in this category.
The one thing about Earl Thomas, right, is like, because he's playing deep so much, he's not like he's having to cover for corners that aren't doing their job, right? You're not seeing, look, Marcus Peters maybe will have some more missed assignments in 2020, but he didn't have a ton in 2019. And then obviously when you're playing alongside Marlon Humphrey, I think even if we do see a regression a little bit from Earl Thomas, I don't know that he plays in a secondary where you're really going to see it that much, because he gets covered by guys like Marlon Humphrey and Peters and Jimmy Smith and Tavon Young. I mean, they're just so loaded in the secondary.
Right. So I think that go ahead. Tom. The Bengals are the number one group. So I agree with everything that Sonny said except one thing. He said that a lot of the guys that we have are B guys. Yes, I would agree with that if you were saying that, if you're talking about Sean Williams and you're talking about Von Bell. When you talk about Jesse Bates is an A guy. He has a potential to be an A guy. And the thing that proves that and backs it up is I can go back to this group. Let's go back to 2018, right? So 2019 was last year. Let's go back to 2018. In 2018, even though Tony's saying that PFF isn't the end-all, be-all, that's true. All-Pro is definitely voted on by the writers. That's true. But sometimes the writers don't really give small market teams and guys that play for those teams the credit that they deserve. But if you look at PFF, would it shock you, Tony, that if in 2018 Jesse Bates had a better year than Minkah Fitzpatrick did
but this is
2019?
Right, but this is why you can't
better coverage grade than Minkah Fitzpatrick
but there's
did
no way
in 2019.
Yeah.
And Jesse Bates also had 2 touchdowns in 2018. And he also was a ball hawk, and he was one of the runner-ups for the defensive rookie of the year. So he was in the race. I'm not saying that he was going to win it, but he was in the race at one point. So Jesse Bates, to me, is a guy that has the potential to be an A safety in this league. Now, let's also look at Sean Williams. Sean Williams, he didn't have a good year last year. But if you go back to 2018, he had 5 interceptions. He had a gang of tackles. And one thing that opened my eyes to this is a lot of our fans, we all are on the Jesse Bates train. And when I had Sean Williams on, Sean Williams kind of gets some flack because he hasn't lived up to the Reggie Nelson level that we were accustomed to before he came in. So a lot of people just get on Sean Williams all the time. Even though he's a very solid player, he hits people really hard. He's not bad. He came on our show and he was like, everyone's talking about, Jesse Bates and this and that. And he didn't mean any disrespect by it. But he was like, if you look at our numbers statistically are exactly the same. I had 5 interceptions and this many touchdowns. If we're going off the past 2 years, we've had the same numbers. And so for me, you've got 2 solid safeties there. And then you also have Von Bell that you're adding to the mix for it. And so for me, that is the reason why I have to go with the Bengals number 1. But obviously the panel feels like it's the Ravens. And I think honestly it's a toss-up. You can go either way. But to me, I just feel like when I compare, I don't want to take anything away from the Ravens safety. I think Chuck Clark has definitely played good and everything. But we've just seen Chuck Clark. We're just now seeing that. Like, we've seen Sean Williams for years. We've seen Von Bells for years. We know what they're going to give us. We know what we're going to get from them. Now, Chuck Clark could go to another level. That's not to say that he couldn't end up better than he was last year. But me, I'm going with what I know, what I've seen, and the sum. So for that is going to go ahead and end it for us. I think I think the sum was that the Ravens had the number 1 safety position. What was the count, Sonny, for the cornerback? I assume it was the Ravens too, right?
I think the
Right?
Ravens. Yeah, I think the Ravens took both. Yeah.
Corners, we got Ravens 1, Steelers 2, Browns 3, Bengals 4. Safety, we got Ravens 1, Bengals 2. Very close between 3 and 4, but they're slightly.
It was a tie. I think it was a tie.
No, it wasn't because
Wasn't
Tony ranked the number 2, so that edge went to
You're
the Steelers and Browns.
I changed my vote. Steelers won. Does it change it? Do they go to second now?
I'm sorry. No. Their distance from the Bengals.
It's too
But
bad.
hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in with us. I know we ran over a little bit. Appreciate you guys for following us, supporting us. Every guy here gives great takes. I mean, I love that we get into these passionate arguments and stuff like that, but we also have stuff to back it up. We're not just going to tell you, hey, Jesse Bates is amazing. He's the next Earl Thomas. We're going to actually try to back up what our takes are. And so we can appreciate all of the guys giving their takes. But with that being said, we're going to get out of here. Tony, let them know where they can find your stuff at.
You can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country. I'm trying to figure out, and I'd love to know in the comments, I want to know who sent that box of signed Joe Hayden jerseys to Pac-Man. This is the weirdest story I've heard all week. I don't know. It doesn't – the fact that Joe Hayden – by the way, Joe Hayden was not a Steeler when Pac-Man was a Bengal. Okay, so these two guys never even faced off. So the fact that a box of signed Joe Hayden jerseys ended up on Pac-Man's door, I need to know how it happened. I need to know who did it. Please leave in the comments who you think did it. I'm hearing a lot of Joey Porter out there in Steeler Nation. I think that's a fantastic guess. If I had to put one down, it would be Joey Porter, but I'd love to get other people's takes because it's the wildest story I've heard all week. And I love that Joe Hayden actually had to come out with his agent and deny the story because it got that big. You can also find me. Yeah, that's crazy. You can also find me on Locked On Steelers. I'm on there on Tuesdays, Tony Tuesdays, with my good friend Chris Carter. And of course, you can find me here every Monday night, 8:30. So like and subscribe. We're going to be doing this all the way through the upcoming regular season. We're just like a month away now, which I'm pretty excited about.
Pretty close. Sonny, where can they find your stuff?
You can find me SZG Sports on Twitter, Facebook, IG, and on YouTube for Ravens content. Also, I think we have around 40 people. Before you leave, please give it a thumbs up to the video. It just helps us rank and to show this content. And please share the content with your AFC North buddies. Okay. Thank you for joining, my guys.
Appreciate it. Quincy.
Yep, you can find me on youtube.com/Quincy Carrier. I give a lot of fresh opinions and takes I'm sure Tony and Steelers Nation would just love. But make sure you subscribe there. I'm doing full out AFC North training camp coverage, which means I am forcing myself to sit through all of these training camp live streams just so I can get the juicy bits to you. So if you want juicy bits, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I got tons of them.
Quincy, you can skip the Steelers stuff because I'll tell you what, I watched it today. They cut out before literally anything happened. It's like, I was working for Locked On Steelers doing the thing last year. I got media access, and I'll tell you what, the guys who do it every day, they don't show up until they start with the thing called 7 shots, right, where the actual team drills start. The Steelers coverage cut out before they even basically went through any sort of individual drill. I mean, they weren't even doing quarterback wide receiver drills yet. And they cut the coverage off. So don't even bother with Steelers. The Steelers are basically showing you them stretching, and then maybe they hit a pad or two, and they cut it off. It's insane.
I don't know. We can tell a lot about Big Ben, though, from how he stretches, from what I've heard on Twitter. It's been a big indicator.
By the way, he's looking great. He's looking great. Arm strength is there. As Juju said today, he's looking elite, boys. He's looking elite.
Sounds good. So you guys can find me obviously on the AFC North Talk channel. So please be sure if you're listening to share this, subscribe, like this video. But you can also find me at New Stripe City. That's the Bengals YouTube channel. If you're ever looking for more Bengals in-depth analysis and stuff like that, you can find me there. You can find me on Twitter at New Stripe City, as well as Instagram at New Stripe City. But that has been the show. This is AFC North Talk. Thank you guys for listening, and we're out.
Peace. Are we out?
Not yet.
No, it's still live.